Woohoo! Well, thank you all so much for joining in. Page 158 here on Crowdcast. Cheers, y'all. I hope you're drinking something good.
Just water.
There you go. That's better than me. So we have Michael Elliott with David Menconi, and I'm so excited to introduce you. Michael Elliott is a Wake Forest native, and he's been in the store 400 or 500 times to sign books that are going out to you all. If you do want books signed by him, personalized, just shoot us a note. There's a buy the book button right on the bottom here, and just click that, and you can fill out the information, and we'll get it personally signed to you and mailed out as soon as we can. We also have David Menconi, who is a prolific journalist here and writes about music, which we've done a couple spots with you, David, and you are fantastic. So I'm going to tune off here. We're talking tonight about the John Hiatt book. And Michael, I'm going to lead it off to you. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Thank you, Sue. And it is Hyatt.
Hi.
John Hiatt. Yeah. That's okay.
Like the hotel.
That's right. The Hyatt House. So, hey, David, how you doing?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Well, shucks, and congratulations. It seems to be doing wonderfully for you.
Yeah, it is, and I want you guys to be the first to know. Thanks for everybody tuning in. I want you to be the first to know. I just talked to my editor today, and they're going for a second printing. Yeah. It's always a good deal in Bookland. And the paperback is already set to be published in fall of 2022. So
nice.
Big news. So thanks to all you people who have bought it, and hopefully everybody watching tonight's already bought it. But if not, buy the book.
That's right. Well, even if you have, Christmas presents, man.
Exactly.
The holidays are coming, y'all. So this is your first book, right?
It is. It's my very first book.
Tell us a little bit about your background, what you did leading up to this.
Well, I was in radio for 30 years, 27 years straight through. So, but rounded up to 30 because I've done some radio work since getting out of it. Currently, my radio enjoyment is through the North Carolina Reading Service, which we read news to the blind and visually impaired. My beautiful wife, Elizabeth, and I both do that once a month. And we enjoy doing that for the North Carolina Reading Service. And before that, though, I worked for a variety of companies, and mostly in Southern Virginia and North Central North Carolina. When I started my career at WCBQ in Oxford, formerly WOXF back in the way old days. But from that, I went to WIZS in Henderson, so 1,000-watt AM stations. But then I graduated up to FM, and by the time I got out of radio, I was operations manager for a 6-station cluster in Southern Virginia and North Central North Carolina. Creative director for those folks as well. So every format under the sun, but I ended up in country mostly, oddly enough. But it was a long ride from adult contemporary to classic rock to country to urban, what they called urban then. It's basically just R&B and soul and some gospel as well. And of course, those 1,000-watt AM stations, we would have gospel on Sunday mornings and country for the rest of the day or something. So many stories. I might end up writing a book on that. Who knows? As Waylon Jennings once said, there are probably still too many people alive and married for me to write a book about radio.
Or change the names to protect the innocent.
Exactly. But after that, I ended up going into another line of work, communications, telecommunications. And from there, working for the state of North Carolina, and just started writing freelance a few years ago. And started writing for No Depression and Americana UK across the pond. And I wrote a bit for an online site called Rock and Blues Muse for a while. But mainly it's No Depression, Pop Matters, and albumism are my main gigs these days. And the Bitter Southerner, I've written a piece or two for them. So just wherever and wherever, you know how that goes. You spray and pray.
That's right. Grinding it.
Yeah.
By the way, folks, as we talk here, if questions occur to you, feel free to dump them into the chat there, and perhaps we will integrate them into the discussion. And we should have time to take some questions later towards the end. But yeah, if anything occurs to you, go ahead and stick it in there. So, tell me about the first time you ever saw Hiatt play. When did he first cross your radar and how?
Well, the first time I saw him live was in '93. It was a Perfectly Good Guitar Tour. I saw him in Raleigh, and I believe it was at the Ritz, which is not the greatest place in the world to hear live music, but it was for some reason that night it just sounded fantastic. I think I was in the right place. I was like down stage left, almost on the third row in, even though you don't have rows at the Ritz. But I remember how beautiful the sound was, and he had that's when he had Michael Ward playing guitar for him, who later went on to the Wallflowers about a year or two later, and played on their humongous album that went multi-platinum, Bringing Down the Horse. But got to see him with Hiatt, and he was like one of the loudest guitar players I've ever seen up. But it was wonderful, and it was just I remember when they did Lipstick Sunset at the very end of the night. How everything just sounded perfect. That's my main memory of that. I saw him again at the BB King Blues Fest at Walnut Creek. He came out and performed early on in the day. I saw so many of those blues festivals. I can't remember if Joe Cocker was on that same gig or if it was just Hiatt, but it was also Buddy Guy on that and BB King. I think Robert Cray was on there too. And he was just amazing on that one too. And I think that was a couple of years later. And the last time I saw him was in Clayton of all places, just a few years ago. He was doing a solo acoustic show, and my wife and I saw him there. That's the first time she got to see him live. So I've seen him just a handful of times, but he's burned in my memory each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got some Hiatt bona fides myself. I remember getting this is a cutout that I bought for 60 cents from a Target back in like 1980. And so around overcoats from like 1974. And
That's
around
right.
then, 80, 81, I saw him in Ry Cooder's band. And they let him sing a song too. And yeah, it was really fantastic. So I'm super jealous you got to do this book, because I have followed him forever. But good for you for getting it done, man.
Yeah, thank you. I've been a very lucky person, very lucky, and it was just a matter of it was 33 and a third puts their books out about full albums, and they have an open call every now and then, and so that's what happened. I was like, well, Bring the Family needs to be represented. I was looking at their previous books, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I thought, why don't I just write the book? Like Toni Morrison said, if you don't see a book, write the book you want to read, or if you don't see a book about what you like, just write it. So I went by point by their proposal stuff, and I wrote out a proposal, sent it to them. I didn't get it. But so then I thought, well, I mean, I put all this work into a proposal. Why don't I just shop it around a couple of other places, So the third place I tried was Chicago Review Press. And, I went to each website. I just did my research and pitched them like they wanted to be pitched. You just go to submission guidelines, and I went to that website, sent that in. About 5 minutes after I sent the pitch in, Kara Rhoda, the editor there, she just so happened to be at her desk. I don't know. And she sent it back. She said, "Oh, this sounds great. Send me a full proposal." And so my wife and I were like, "What?" So I had to sit down and get to work. And so I wrote a full proposal on that and sent it to her. we went from doing just an album of Bring the Family Profile to a full biography. And it just so happened, nobody had ever written a book about John Hiatt, and I couldn't believe it. I kept Googling, and Amazoning, trying to see, and all I saw were music books and guitar tabs and stuff like that. But no book or biography about him. So I said, okay, and she said, we want to do this. And it was as simple and lucky as that. So.
Had you ever interviewed him before this book?
No.
Wow.
Never had. I had the pleasure in my radio years of interviewing a whole lot of people, from Delbert McClinton to Charlie Daniels to Little Richard, Johnny Rivers, all these people. But I never interviewed Hiatt. Never had the opportunity, because in radio, you just don't play John Hiatt. It was, unless you're on AAA format, and there was no AAA format at the time in the Triangle area. Now, of course, 95.7, that station is perfect for that, for Hiatt. And but back then, there was just nobody was playing him. And I would play, I remember, I'm going to tell myself here, but I remember back when I was in country, there were these, you'd have to do BMI logs every few years, every year, sometimes every quarter. But in the BMI logs, I remember I would play more John Hiatt songs than I would at other times, because I wanted to write his name down, give him credit for it. And there was a time in the late 80s, early 90s where he was having just hit after hit on country radio, but just not by him, by other artists.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan, and I believe he was never given the credit he was due. And I just wanted to make sure he was with this book.
There you go. So, tell us a little bit about your process. Did you do all the interviews first, or some interview a little, write a little, or what was kind of the arc of it, getting it done?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know if I was going to get anybody to participate. Once I got the go ahead, which to Chicago Review Press's credit, I have to give, I don't know what happened, but they said, yes, we want you to write this book. And so I said, okay. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, what if nobody participates? And so I'll just have to do a full biography but I'll just do my research and write from my heart, but the next thing I know, I think the first person I got in contact with was Kevin McKendry, marvelous piano player and producer, and he produced Hiatt's Eclipse sessions at his place. That's where he also produced Delbert McClinton's last album, which won a Grammy, at his place called the Rock House. It's his studio. It's basically behind his house. He and his son Yates Yates is an amazing guitar player. Kevin's an amazing piano player. He answered me right away, and he was all excited that I was doing a book on Hiatt, and just the nicest guy. And from there, how things just snowball. And so he apparently, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. He maybe put the word out. A second person I know, I talked to Matt Wallace, who is a producer of the Replacements and Train, Maroon 5, and all these guys. He produced Perfectly Good Guitar, and the live album that followed, Live at Budokan, Comes Alive at Budokan, sorry. And so he produced those two records, but he was super great to talk to and work with. And from there, it just started snowballing, and it was just, the elusive John Hiatt was the only one I hadn't gotten. And I reached out to everybody I could find. And I had some contacts from radio, but just not many, because I've been out of it for a few years. And so I had to just do a lot of Googling, a lot of researches, and some people would point me to the right place. But one morning, it was Sunday morning, my wife and I were in bed. It was about 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that. I get a text, and it's a guy named Ken Leviton. And he says, I hear you're writing a book about my client, and tell me more. And I thought, it is 8 o'clock on a Sunday. This guy is emailing me from Nashville, which means what, David? 7 a.m. on a Sunday. He's getting his money. He's making his money and earning that that check, So I said, okay. So I'm like nervous and I don't know what to do. But I email him back and I tell him, why I think I should write this story. And basically what it was, I gave him a little thing about how much I admire Hiatt from what he has been through, the resilience he's shown. He has overcome addiction. He's overcome abuse. He's overcome all these obstacles that would make most people hightail and run the other way and not want to engage anymore. But he not only did that, he survived and he thrived. And it's a parallel to the way I wanted to live my life and the way I felt I've lived my life over the past few years. I overcame addiction myself and some obstacles. So I wanted to tell that story, and I wanted other people to know that that if they're struggling, that they can come out the other end and be more successful than they've ever been. Maybe not, a celebrity, but maybe they could just be better people and they can feel better at what they've accomplished. And that's basically my whole point in this book.
Well, cool. And then when you finally did get to interview Hiatt, was it over the phone? Was it in person? How much time did you get? And but it was, y'all covered some fraught territory too. Addiction, suicide. I mean, this is not lighthearted stuff, a lot of this.
Hiatt has been a notoriously private person, and he does not. He feels like his songs tell the story, and he has never been as direct with interviewers, and even his songs are not direct. But when I got set up to talk with him, I finally got to speak with him. Spoke with him a handful of times for several hours each time over the phone. And the thing was, we were supposed to meet face to face. It all started. We had arranged for March of 2020 to fly to Nashville.
Best laid plans.
Right, the best laid plans. That's right. So ended up. Everybody's tour was canceled. I mean, come on. And everybody's plans, So ended up talking to him on the phone. And he was in the middle of recording his album with Jerry Douglas, Leftover Feelings, which nobody knew at the time. But I don't know. I can't take credit for it. I wish I would love to, but I think he was just in a place where he's pushing 70 and he's probably thinking, well, let's just talk, let me get it out. And he was also in the moment. It was also this time he was writing these songs on Leftover Feelings, which really address his childhood on his brother's suicide. He has a song on there about that on the new album, and his addiction, the rock bottom he had. Mississippi Phone Booth deals with that, and he just started opening up though, talking about and filling in the blanks and talking between the lines about those experiences. He had never, to my knowledge, talked about his abuse before, and when he did that, I was like, okay, I don't know how to react to this because I was not expecting this, and so I just let him talk, and I just wrote what he said, and I tried to frame it as sensitively as I could, and I hope I did a good job. But I just let him talk, and he was thankfully willing to talk, and I think with most people involved in this project that came forward. I'm not saying that COVID was a good thing that happened. It was not. But it was the only advantage of it was it made people slow down, and take stock and be reflective. And I think I probably got the best end of that with people being a little sentimental about their past and everybody. The love that these people show Hiatt is, it's immeasurable because they all respect him and they all know what he's been through, and they feel like this is well deserved. every one of them that spoke to me said, well, it's about time that somebody wrote a book about him. So
here's a question from the audience. Did you record the phone interviews with Hiatt, and how did you organize your research? So
yes,
were you recording or just typing, or
I recorded all the. I know I don't trust my fingers, but I did record everything. But I'm, they're not going to be released or anything like that. But yeah, I do have I did record them for research purposes, so I could transcription purposes, and I conducted my research over several. It was a couple of years that I did this. Several books here, and of course, the internet allows you to do research that you would probably take years to do if it wasn't for that. Years ago, you'd have to go to get some foot traffic into libraries and things like that. Well, everything was shut down when I was writing this book, so I just Google was my friend. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, indeed. What are some surprising things you learned? Stuff you would not have guessed about him that doing a deep dive on it you came to.
One of the things, and this is funny, it plays into our both of us, is I dug back. I thought, why not go back? And I wasn't really planning to do a genealogy type of situation at the beginning, but it just ended up that way. You start going back, and you can ask my wife, once I get off onto a tangent, I'll go off on a side road. But I went back into his family history and ended up going back to, he's like part of the original Quakers. His lineage goes back there. But once they moved here, they ended up coming down to North Carolina, and his ancestors settled in Guilford County at a place called New Garden, which was where a lot of Quakers ended up. And Levi Coffin, who is credited as being the president of the Underground Railroad, actually put down stakes in Guilford County and started New Garden for the Quakers. But then when they found out this was a slave state and they weren't going to, in North Carolina did not want to change that at the time, they said, well, heck with this, we're moving, west. And so they went out to, ended up settling in Indiana, which is where a lot of Quakers ended up. And the Hiatts were at one point when they moved out there, 50% of people named Hiatt in America lived in Indiana. So he has some strong. So that was quite.
There you go. Mm-hmm. What has he reacted to the book that you know of? Have you heard anything from him or his people?
Yeah, it's funny when I finished the book. Well, one thing I did not ask for authorization. I feel like when you get authorization for something, that it's kind of like it just reeks of being a sycophant. It's just going to be a fluff thing, and I didn't want that. And thankfully, John did not want that either. But they did ask to see the manuscript before I sent it off to Chicago Review Press, and it was mainly just to check for accuracy. It wasn't to censor or anything. But I will say there is nothing more nerve-wracking than after you've written a book and you send it off to the subject, and there's some stuff in there that's not flattering at all. And my wife and I think it was a Sunday afternoon, we were sitting on the couch and we get an email from Ken. And I didn't look at it. And I said, I can't, because this is going to be the answer, But my wife said, I'll read it to you. And she looked down at it and she said, all it said was in Ken's very short way of talking in an email. He said, book's good to go. And I was like, are you serious? That's all it says. So yeah, there you go. But
so there wasn't anything they needed to correct? No,
not from
that's great.
John. It not a single bit. And I thought, did he read this? But okay. we're off and running. But he is now he sold it. He's selling it at his shows. It's at the merch table.
Oh, great. That'll help.
He's signing copies at the merch table. Well, he's pre-signing the copies. I don't think he's sitting at because of COVID. He's not sitting at the merch table. So, but he's selling them at his shows with, and a lot of them are signed, I believe. And where they apparently are selling pretty good because got an email last week about we need more copies. So, so we're sending them out more. So, yeah, he's on tour now, and when you're there, make sure to pick up a copy at the merch table.
That's right. Is this the tour with Jerry Douglas now that he's doing? Okay, great.
Yeah, what they're doing is they're having a Jerry's coming out. His band is playing a set and then a mini set, maybe about a half hour or so. John comes out, and then they all play together. It's about a 3-hour show from what I've seen. I've not seen it yet because, and I have a bone to pick because for some reason they're not coming through North Carolina. They went from Virginia to South Carolina. I take this as a personal affront. I don't know, maybe, but we'll have to figure that out why they skipped the North Carolina. But oh well.
So what's the most interesting or unusual response you've gotten, or surprising? Just some notable reactions that registered.
My favorite thing to say, and this is a badge of honor, everybody was so cooperative in this book, except one guy, and you know how these things go. You have interviews, you conduct these interviews, and you have to send releases to people. Glenn Johns is a guy that I've admired my entire life, and I sent I asked Glenn if he would like to interview for the book. The man was an angel. He sent me an email back. He said, "I would love to talk to you about Mr. Hiatt. Because he loves John Hiatt. He produced Slow Turning and Stolen Moments." And so I thought, I don't know. This is, I've talked to John Hiatt, but this is Glenn Johns. This is the guy that engineered Led Zeppelin, produced The Who, the Beatles. So I thought, this is great. I sent him an email preemptively. I sent him an email back, excited. I said, "Mr. Johns, I'm looking forward to talking with you. Here's a release, if you wouldn't mind signing it and sending it back." Sent an email back. He says, "Mr. Elliott, as you know, or probably know, I've been involved in many documentaries and books over the years, and I've never, ever signed a release, and I will not start now." And I sent back and said, "I apologize. I am sorry. You don't have to sign a release." And he comes back and he says, "No, I don't want any part of your book." And count me out. So I said, "Oh, wow." And so I just got dressed down from Glenn Johns, by Glenn. But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, this man dressed down Don Henley. He told his face that the Eagles were not or never would be a rock band. They were a country band, and be happy with that. So I thought, well, I'll take it as a badge of honor to be dressed down by Glenn. But hey, I ended up, using material from his book, Sound Man. So it worked out, And I still love him. He still does great work. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear managed to not have hard feelings there.
But everybody was wonderful that I worked with.
Yeah. So, you've gotten more immersed than most people in his body of work. What is your favorite phase and stage of his? If you had to narrow down the catalog to like the 3 essential records you'd point people towards, what would they be?
3 essential
Hiatt records.
Yeah, I would say start with Bring the Family.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also say the 3 essential, right off the top of my head without thinking, would be Bring the Family, Perfectly Good Guitar, and Dirty Jeans and Mudslide Hymns. But if I thought about it for a moment longer, I would say go back and get Slugline, and I would say get that instead of Dirty Jeans, because that way you have a pre-family thing. And the reason I say that and not Riding with the King is because Riding with the King is a wonderful album, but it's so close to Bring the Family as far as sound and theme. So if you have one, you don't really need the other if you're just talking about the essential. Slugline is a great encapsulation of that new wave era that when he was being the angry young man, doing the Costello type of thing. That was, yes, that one. Yes. I'm going to have Liz bring some records over here too, because you're getting all the Hiatt, flexing with the Hiatt, man. We show, but mine's over on the other side. So, and we can play Record Nerds together.
Oh, we could totally nerd out, I am sure.
Yeah, I love Perfectly Good Guitar because it just came out at this time when it was like the height of grunge. But he kind of like, I want to play in this too, but he ended up sounding like he didn't sound like it sounded perfectly at home with that, and he didn't sound like he was out of time. He didn't sound like he was some old guy trying to fit in. It just sounded perfectly natural. He sounded like Neil Young just having a ball with that. And so I credit him and Matt Wallace to that, because they made that happen. Oh, here is my lovely wife, who is not wanting to get on camera, but so, all right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go.
All right, a radio promo, nice.
Yeah. So these are twins. One of these, I'm not going to say which because I don't know. One of these was his girlfriend at the time. I don't know if he even knows, but it's one of them was, and this was the observatory they went up to and hung out with at times, so that's fun right there. But got the overcoats too. Yeah, we got radio promo. Right. How about that, David?
So that one was when you were at the radio station?
Yeah. These were radio copies, and so, but they never got played
right
on the air. But there you go.
All right.
So anyway, but yeah, I would say do Slugline for the early stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Perfectly Good Guitar and how at home he sounded there. I would contrast that with Warming Up to the Ice Age, which was also kind of a hard rock move, but sounded awkward and difficult.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say Warming Up to the Ice Age?
Yeah, Warming Up to the Ice Age is the very same. Yep. That was the first time I interviewed him, way back when for the college newspaper.
As well.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, that was a horribly. That sounds horrible. It just let's not mince words. It was 1985. A lot of people blame the 80s for that, but when I hear that, like, oh, it was the 80s, I counter that with, that was the same year that REM was putting out stuff there. Reckoning had come out, and it was 85 was Fables of Reconstruction.
Fables, yeah.
Yes. And so, that did not sound like Warming Up to the Ice Age or anything else. You could do this. Scott Litt was making it. Don Gaiman, they were doing great production stuff. I love Norbert Putnam and what he did for bass guitar with Elvis, and he was an amazing producer in his own right. He produced Changes in Latitudes, for Jimmy Buffett and all that stuff. But I think, and he even said so in the book, he said, I don't know what we were trying to do. It was 1985. I think there was a lot of substances being used at that time, and definitely with John. He was very, it was either cocaine or vodka at that time for him, or both. So it was just not a very, very good sounding record. And it's a shame because the songs are wonderful on that album. Yeah. When We Ran, I mean, come on, it's great stuff.
Well, and that was the period when his wife took her own life too.
It was the lowest point in his life as far as his addictions. And he, there's a story in the book where he left the final day of recording for Warming Up the Ice Age and got arrested for drunk driving. And Norbert didn't even know he had been drinking, that Hiatt had been drinking. And that's, it's what you call a functioning alcoholic, where you work and you're still functioning and nobody knows you're drunk, but you're drinking all the time. So that was what happened there. And then, it wasn't long after that he got into the issue that is the subject of Mississippi Phone Booth. And so he got in that situation. That's when he decided to clean up. And unfortunately, after he cleaned up, that's when his wife took her life, after that. It's just it was just a horrible time for everything that happened. It's a very dark part in the book, but if you can't have the dark, you can't have the light without the dark, and it makes you appreciate the light so much more. And after all that, he cleaned up, he got help, and he moved back to Nashville. He did some moving. He lived in Nashville and he goes back to California. Then he says adios to California, moves back home to Nashville, and that's when everything starts turning around. He cleans up, and everything starts moving up. It's strange. You see all these behind the music VH1 specials where the arc is they rock and they get big and then they get high, figuratively and literally, and then they crash and burn. But this is a situation where he was kind of fair to middling and he got high and he was drinking and drugging, and then but then he cleaned up. He crashed, then he cleaned up, then he got big, artistically, not commercially, but his songs have been recorded. You got a song recorded by Bonnie Raitt, you got a song recorded by Bob Dylan, you can't talk to him, It's hard to argue with that, but anybody is recorded one of his songs.
You might know this. I presume you were trying to run down sales figures. What's the top selling record he's had, and how many was that?
Oh man, you can put me on the spot with a number.
If you don't know, that's fine. I'm just
thinking. I think that the highest charting was
Perfectly Good Guitar. Yeah,
Perfectly Good Guitar. Yeah, that hit the top 40. But I can't tell you what exactly the sales figures, the highest selling was. It's probably probably in that era. It had to be in the era of Slow Turning and Stolen Moments and Perfectly Good Guitar. But he did well with Walk On as well, the follow-up to Perfectly Good Guitar, because there was just a trajectory going up, more people were hearing, more people were buying. So, yeah,
if I had to guess, I would say he's probably had one do 250,000, somewhere in that.
I think so. I don't think he's ever hit, and I'll probably hear about this, but I don't think he's ever hit gold, No. I don't know.
He might have a gold record in New Zealand or something, but
I'll tell you what, the Netherlands, I guarantee you, because he is a huge follower in the Netherlands. I learned that with writing the book, about how, and I'd always heard about it, but I didn't know it was as huge as it was. But yeah, they love him over there in Germany and all those places, well, they've just got good taste in music every now and then, and you got to hand it to them. Well, I got a question for you. What was your experience in interviewing? Why did you find Hiatt when you interviewed him? You interviewed him right at the pivotal time there with Ice Age.
Yeah, and I wish I was not so young and dumb, because I feel like I did I was at the college newspaper and just really, still learning how to do it. I've interviewed him a few times since then, but in 1980, I mentioned getting that record early 80s and seeing him with Ry Cooder's band, and he hit that kind of Elvis Costello nerve back then. This was a time of Slugline and 2-Bit Monsters, and I really liked it. Yeah, and Yeah, the first time I interviewed him in '85, it started out. He gets on the phone all gruff and goes, "Yeah, what's?" I was at the University of Texas. He goes, "What's an Italian doing in Texas, man?" So yeah, it was a strange conversation in retrospect. I wasn't very savvy as a writer or critic, and I wanted to like warming up to the Ice Age more than I did because I was a fan of his, and the company was certainly trying. The record label was certainly trying to push it. So I was as positive about it as I could manage. But yeah, it was a good talk. He was quotable, funny all along. But yeah, that was in retrospect, a very dark time for him, and I was just unaware of it.
It's funny you bring that up because I see up above you there, all of a sudden, that is it's one of the weirdest records in his discography. But Visconti, who I talked to too, the producer of that album, was a brilliant guy. I don't know if he and Hiatt were a good fit, and he admits that too. But he, it was a very interesting experiment, and listening back, I will say I listened to a lot of Hiatt over the last couple of years, and I learned to appreciate it a little more than I had before. Even Ice Age, I was like, okay, well, I get that, but good Lord, that slap bass, stop! It's just,
yeah.
But that's with all of a sudden, I thought some moments were really, really cool. But you got some great. The Doll Hospital and Something Happens is on there. Some good stuff. And I Look for Love is a charming little single. I think Roseanne Cash did a better job than he did on it, though. But, but he's had some great moments on every record. So there's this early stuff. It's fascinating that he doesn't play anything before Riding with the King in concert. It's just. I asked him about that, and he was completely befuddled. He said, "I don't," and I said, "No, man, you don't." He said, "Well, maybe I should break out my edge of the razor for this tour."
So we're almost out of time here. Tell us what's next. What are you gonna do after this?
I was hoping you would not ask me that. What's next for you, David? What's going on in your world?
In my world, I am almost done with the obligatory terrible first draft of a book about Rounder Records.
Oh yes, I'm looking forward to that. Their 50th year, huh?
Beg pardon?
It's their 50th year.
It actually was in last year.
Oh yeah.
For various reasons, it got held up. Just because everything freaking does. But I feel like it seemed like a good idea to just plunge right into another one after the North Carolina book, but I hadn't realized how depleted I was until it was too late. And it's been a slog, real slog. But
here you go, right here. It did amazing job. It's a wonderful book. I love that.
Thank you.
And when I saw what you had titled it, I was like, oh, that is perfect. Let them go, perfect. But yeah, I've got a couple of irons in the fire, but I don't want to reveal anything yet. But I've got a couple of things that are brewing, and I'm very excited about if they pan out. So we'll just have to see. I'll leave it at that.
Keep in touch with that. I edit a new music series at UNC Press, and we're always looking.
Okay.
So when you're ready to pitch, hit me.
All right, I hear you. And how about this?
All right, nice.
There's awesome. Big flex right there. So.
Very nice. Very nice. We're going all high fidelity here, man.
I'll break out my 8 tracks in a little bit.
Oh, you still got yours. I lost mine years ago.
I only have one. It's no, I'm sorry. I have 2. I have one by about Vanilla Fudge, and and I've got one by, unfortunately, I have 38 Special.
Nantucket.
There you go.
I bought this so we could put a picture of it in the North Carolina book. Found it on eBay.
Oh, I should get Liz to break out my Nantucket record with it's signed by all the members. She's
awesome.
shaking her head.
Why do I feel like we could be here all night, guys?
We could.
This is
We could.
fascinating.
My next book will be a biography of Tommy Red.
Nah, nice.
Where do you hold you to that? Well, guys, this was fantastic. And you know what? My friend's son is named Hyatt, so I don't know why I pronounce it Height, but yeah. And he's named after John Hiatt. So, and I pronounced it again. Anyways, I can't thank you all enough. We have signed copies of Michael Elliott's book at the store. You can click buy the button book and we can have it personalized for you. Any last thoughts that you want to share with everybody? Was there that one moment where you're just like, oh my God, like this man is more than a god? Or did you think of him like that?
Well, I will say that I think that, and I said it before, but I'll reiterate it, that the amount of chutzpah and gumption it took for him to pick himself up after what he'd been through and live the life he lived and thrive and still be doing it after all these years and enjoying it.
Amazing.
And you could tell how much he's enjoying life on this new tour, you know. But I also, before I leave, I want to say thank you, Sue, and everybody at Page 158. They've been wonderful throughout this process, and thank you so much. So you've got my undying devotion, and I will never buy a book at one of them big box stores after.
So I met your wife, and I haven't met you personally yet, but I met your wife, and she came in. She said it was like a surreal moment. We saw your book on the shelf, you know, and it was like the coolest thing.
The first moment I've seen it out in the wild was at your store. Yes, absolutely. And I want to give props to my wife too. If it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't have written the book. She told me, she said, you're going to write a book by the end of the year. You're going to have a book deal, and then you're going to write a book. And I said, you're crazy. But she was right. So I don't know if she did anything behind the scenes or she's like bewitched or something. I don't know.
Well, it takes a village. I do truly believe that. So keep on to the next book. I think you have a lot of energy in you, and I think you can write some more stuff. That would be fascinating. And David, thank you so much for being here. Can't wait to read what you're writing next. And I can't thank you all enough for being here. Again, buy the book at Page 158 Books. And I hope you have a great Christmas. These make great Christmas presents.
Yes, they do. Click the button down there.
Great job, Michael.
Good night, guys. And please don't watch Oak Island tonight. That's the other thing.
Take care, everybody.
I hope you all have a good night. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.